Hello. Hey, Sarah. I welcome you to this interview with a massive thank you. Thanks for being my first one, and thanks for saying yes for my 100 interviews project. As I told you, my endeavor in this project is to bring out, your golden nuggets in an illustrative format, so it's easier for for your audience, for my audience, to consume and gain instant inspiration when they're feeling down. So thank you for saying yes, and thank you for kickstarting this one. Let's begin with getting to know a bit about you. So please tell us, what do you do?
I am a musician, so I sing various styles. I play piano, flute, baroque recorders, and the
Wow.
Irish whistle and some other stuff, but I'm also a composer. So I've currently at the end of writing a show which I will be touring next year.
Oh.
It's of a very unique nature, though. It's not like a normal musical, or it's not just a concert. It's a bit different. I've taken an idea that some people use, and I've just taken it to another level. So I'm quite excited about that. So I have a music studio in my
Yes.
home
Mm-hmm.
where I teach and I hold small concerts throughout the year.
Mm.
So that's the biggest part of what I do. I also do some other work on the side where I write personalised music or song for loved ones. So an
Oh.
example, one woman came to me, her mother had written poetry. She was a country singer, so she asked me to make her mother's poems into songs, and then she went and sang them at Tamworth Country Music Festival. And I've had other inquiries about, it just makes the best personalised gift to receive a song about
Of course.
yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine.
And I do some other musical work like editing. I've had some other strange requests. One woman wanted to give her best friend the sheet music to their favourite song, but she couldn't find it in order to buy it. So she paid me to write it out by ear. And so some different things like that. And then on another note, and I also do musical workshops as well on performance coaching and
Yeah, sure.
ear work, strengthening the ear, basic chord structures for people who'd like to start writing their own
Yep.
songs, or for any musician, it's really important to understand that. So I do different workshops.
Yep.
But the other side of what I'm starting this year, I'm so excited. This has been a dream of mine since I was a teenager, to be able to work with people with disabilities. Before I even realised I had a disability myself, but doctors didn't know about my disability back then. So both my son and I have just been diagnosed with a medical condition, and mine has actually progressed so much by my age that it has become a disability. So I find that interesting, that as a teenager I wanted to work with disability and those less fortunate. So ever for over 2 decades, this was a dream. Didn't think it would happen, but this year it's happening. And I've been asked to join a group of motivational speakers to go around
Beautiful.
high schools to speak about what leads up to domestic violence on both the victim and the perpetrator side. What leads people to this position, and how can both parties then move on the other side from a domestic violence situation? And we're going to high schools to speak to teenagers. So hopefully we can prevent.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can do a lot of prevention. So that starts this year. I'm very excited about that. I've also been asked to write music, a song for that, so that we can leave the youth with a song,
Yeah.
and we can email it to them. Hopefully that also will help boost them.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your passion. I can hear, you just could go on and on about this thing
Yeah,
called
I could with all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I just want to decode a couple of things that you mentioned. So what do you mean by the ER?
ER.
Yeah.
You mean DV?
Yeah, what's the DV? I don't, yeah, what do
Oh,
these
you mean
terms?
the ear, like ear work that
Yeah.
I said at the beginning?
Oh, you said
For my
earwork.
workshops.
Oh,
ear.
oral work.
So
Okay.
oral, basically oral work. So
Yeah, got it.
it strengthens the ear. So a lot of people have the misunderstanding that singing, not everybody has a good voice. That is not technically true.
Okay.
Everybody is born with a good voice.
Okay.
It's everything else that happens after you make the sound
Yeah.
that can make somebody sound bad when they sing.
Okay.
So there's two different aspects to that. One of them is the ear. Some people just can't sing what they hear in their head.
Okay.
They're hearing the right notes, they're hearing it in their head the way that they want it to sound, but when it leaves their mouth, they just find it impossible to sing what they're hearing in their head. So we strengthen their ears, or the oral side of music.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. I had never thought of this perspective. Like I'm quite passionate about music, but then, just like you said, you actually busted a myth of mine right now. That I cannot, I can be, what can I say? I can be in tone or in tune. I can sing in tune as long as I'm singing in low volume. So my vocal cords are not strong enough to produce high volume while still maintaining.
No, it's not the vocal cords. It's actually your diaphragm.
Okay, maybe.
The very first thing I do with a singing lesson
Absolute
is
ignorance here, just sing.
Yeah, I ask.
That's all I know.
Yeah, well, the very first thing that I will say to a new singing student is how is sound produced? Any sound at all, how is it produced? I think you've got to go right back to the grassroots. And most of them are a bit stumped, and the others, even though they know the answer, they're too scared to say it.
Okay.
And it's vibrations.
Yeah, when two things meet, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So what causes our vocal cords to vibrate against each other?
Air, I think
yes.
so. Yeah.
Yes. What is the organ in the body that makes us breathe, that draws the air in and out of our body?
The nose.
The diaphragm.
The diaphragm, okay, yeah, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
So diaphragm works the exact same way bellows work back in the olden days before electricity. And they used bellows to push air into the fire to keep it well oxygenated and as hot as they needed. Right? So our diaphragm is the bellows inside of our body. Yep. The reason that we sing from the diaphragm and not from our vocal cords, which will wreck them, people do wreck them if they sing from the vocal cords, is because since it's air that makes our vocal cords vibrate to make sound, and it's our diaphragm that draws the air in and out, it's up to our diaphragm, the speed and the power or the pressure behind the air.
Okay.
The airflow. So what's happening with you, right? So if you use your diaphragm too strong or too fast, if the airstream's too fast, you're going to sound sharp. You're going to be out of pitch being sharp. Right. But if you're not using your diaphragm enough, then you'll be flat.
Okay.
And that's why most people sound really flat and dead, because they're not using their diaphragm to draw the air in at the right speed. And all instruments make sound based on the exact same principle. Yep. Every instrument does. The airstream. And you have to think about it this way. Kids, they learn recorder at school. What's the first thing children do with a recorder? They blow really, really far. They blow really hard into it. Yep. It makes it squeak. It makes it split the sound. Yeah. So if you're using the diaphragm too hard, you're going to be doing the exact same thing to your poor vocal cords.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is when people sound harsh and people who are tryhards, they will do that. So with you, you're just not using your diaphragm at all. So when you're singing quietly, you don't need any power or any force from your diaphragm in order to sing in tune. Your problem is that you just need to get the
I need a singing coach.
Speed. Right, just experiment with that.
Yeah, sure. All right. So, Sarah, I'm really curious to know where this all began. Like, tell us about, where were you born? What did you study? What got you into music?
I think that I was born doing it. From my father had a little spinet organ. This is a little tiny spinet organ. He doesn't even play. I don't know why he had it. He plays guitar. And so right from tiny, I don't know why I was at a loss as to why my mother asked me if I wanted to learn piano or not, because I wouldn't go near the spinet organ because I knew I couldn't make it sound good. And if I was going to play it, it had to sound good. I had to do it properly. So I think I was just born with this, I don't like doing things if I can't do it properly. So if I don't have the time or the interest in learning, I won't do it. There's no point in messing around with things.
Oh, beautiful.
So yeah, that's sort of my attitude. So one day, I'm the oldest of 4 girls, and my mother had learned a bit of piano when she was young, but then she only had a piano for about 1 year of her life, and she had all of this stuff get in the way, so she never actually got to really study it. So being the firstborn, she asked me if I wanted to learn the piano, and I asked her what a piano was.
Beautiful.
So she took me to a music shop to show me, and as soon as I saw it, it was like this huge little spinet organ there, and I'm like, oh, yes, I really do. And she had no idea I was interested because I didn't go and play the spinet because I knew I couldn't play it right. So that's where that started, and I wanted to be a concert pianist from day one. And it was my life. It was everything. In my adult years, I've discovered that I have Asperger's syndrome. Now looking back over my childhood, that makes perfect sense. I never played with toys. I didn't know how to play with dolls. I didn't know how to play with children. All I played was the piano. And I 10 to 20 hours a week. It was just, that's all I did.
Wow.
So I was literally my family's alarm clock. I wake up with the sun. So especially in summer, I was awake at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So I would start piano practice at 7 a.m. on the dot. And as soon as everyone heard the piano, they knew it was 7 a.m. It was time to get up for school. And
wow.
then I was just always interested in whatever spin-offs. There's so many different aspects to music, avenues you could go down. And I just took whatever opportunities I had. So even though I haven't been able to make a career of some of these amazing opportunities, I'm very grateful to have had them. So I got to, I was a late bloomer with singing, because if my mother had got me singing lessons when I was a child, that would have been amazing. But my issue was I was also very talented with singing, but you couldn't tell when I was a child.
But you could sing, yeah.
The reason for that was because I have a really good ear naturally, plus I was doing private music exams, so my ear was being trained for exams. I could make up harmony on a spot, even for a song I didn't know. And I could sight read the alto part. So whenever my family sang together, whenever we sang at church, wherever I went, no one else was singers, no one else were musicians or training to be one. I was in training. So I always had to sing the low bit, which actually wrecked my singing, because people don't know this, but girls' voices go through the change like boys' voices do. Yeah, it's just that you can only tell. Yeah, you can only tell when we're singing.
Yeah. And
so unfortunately, I was doing all of this low singing while my voice was going through the change, which sort of did a lot of damage. So, because I wasn't having lessons, and so I was doing this, I was just singing all wrong and everything like that, plus going through the change. So it took me a long time, but with the talent, I couldn't find a teacher who could teach me. So by the time I found a teacher who actually knew what they were doing, I was in my early 30s. And late 20s. But then all the teachers kept trying to get me to sound like a soprano. I'm actually not a lyric soprano. I'm a mezzo soprano. So a mezzo means that I've got a much richer tone. So then they were training me in all of the lighter soprano sounds, and that wrecked my voice further. So long story short, finally, in my mid-30s, I found a teacher who knew what they were doing, fixed up all of the previous damage, and recognised that I'm actually a mezzo soprano. gave me all the right material, and now I'm doing my associate diploma in singing.
Beautiful. So what okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Go
no,
ahead.
that's right.
What I want to ask you is, in your story, I heard that, you've got an attitude of, you'll do it only if you do it best, right?
Yep.
And how has that attitude played up in your business? Or, so is that how you do everything? So, you don't do it if you're not willing to, or if you can't do it best.
This is a really interesting question.
Yes.
For me personally,
Uh-huh.
because, hang on, just get comfy, because I've had a lot of personal things to sort through. I have had chronic depression from young, simply because I had no idea about Asperger's. It turns out pretty much everyone in my family have it.
One more thing I wanted to talk about next. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know about it back then. Even when my son was diagnosed, and this is how I found out about it. People even didn't know about it then. He's 18 now, and we copped a lot of flack when we went out into public. A lot of flack, actually, my son and I, every time we left the house. So I grew up with a lot of frustration, a lot of confusion. I couldn't answer simple questions like what makes you happy, because not only did we have this undiagnosed Asperger's, which made life difficult, because I didn't know, people with Asperger's don't know how to perceive things correctly.
Okay.
And so I was relying on my mother to put everything into perspective for me. There was a lot of fights and arguments that we had because of my literal thinking. But unlike most people with Asperger's who will come out and, who will actually tell you this doesn't make sense because, and so you can tell they're taking things literally. I would just look at mum with a puzzled look on my face, and then that made her frustrated because she didn't know what was going on inside of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And this would happen with the adults in my life and with my peers as well. So plus there was also trauma in my family that was affecting my family. Mm. So when you've got those two things combined, I didn't exactly grow up in the normal time frame. It took me until my mid-30s for me to be able to really start to grow up and start to stand on my own 2 feet. So, I'm sure that's actually not such a rare story. I'm sure there are many people out there who can relate to that in their own version, that you're not really starting to grow up now until your 30s. Yep. And you're still like emotionally, mentally a child, all through their 20s and into their 30s. And so for various reasons, that can be the case. Yep. So I had a lot of setbacks. Without those setbacks, then I can envision a very different life, the way that my life would have gone in relation to your question. But what it meant was that I actually didn't do anything. It meant that plus I had these undiagnosed disability and undiagnosed chronic health issues that turned out to progressive issues. So I was slowly getting worse with my health, but we didn't see that. We didn't know about that. So I had a lot of things stacked against me that we didn't understand. So that actually changed. So in light of your question, in that scenario, I actually didn't do anything. I felt like I saw myself all in the wrong light. I thought all of these bad things about myself because it seemed to me that I wasn't a go-getter, that I didn't have grit, that I wasn't interested in being happy, because of all of those other misunderstood factors. Yep. It seemed that to me. But that is not the truth at all. Totally. I've always fought, I've always striven. Yep. But what it did was all that misunderstanding of myself and believing the wrong things about myself meant that I didn't do anything. I didn't go for anything. And then when I tried, I fell away very quickly and I never finished a project. So, but then little things started to happen that showed me there was actually more to me than I realized. Yep. But it was always like the first one, I was volunteering for the council in an art museum, and I overheard a conversation. One of the other volunteers, who was the senior, had been chatting with the community liaison officer for the council about the very first multicultural festival that we were going to have in my city. And she wanted the music project that she wanted and the music that she wanted to have written, but it seemed totally impossible to her to do that. And yeah, I totally get why. She wanted 7 different cultures playing a piece all at once, but she wanted them to be playing their ethnic instruments their traditional way. Of course, it sounds like it's impossible. Well, I opened my big mouth and instantly said, oh, I can do that. So she took me on that offer, and it was a paid job. And then I thought, crap, I have no idea where to start. I have no idea what I'm doing. Why did I say I could do that? But I intrinsically knew inside that I could.
Yep.
And it turned out very well in the end. So well, in fact, that the Vietnamese flautist looked at me with tears in his eyes. How could you do this? How, you're this young white girl from Australia. How did you write for my flute? And just so beautifully the way that I would write for myself. And it was just the most amazing experience. And especially when I was the only woman, and I look over 10 years younger than what I am too. So they thought they had no life experience. Oh. And most of these men come from communities where the women didn't even breathe unless they were told to by their men, so to speak. So then I had to face all of that as well. And I did it so well. And I was just really proud of myself. And I think that was the first time I saw there was more to me. But then, of course, I thought, well, that was only with music. My personal life was completely falling apart. It was never going well. And I had no light at the end of the tunnel. And, then I'd gone through domestic violence with my husband. Thankfully, I was only married to him for 1 year. And it was easy for me to split up. Unlike other women, it's not easy. And even though people don't know that, it's not easy. So I think my saving grace has been my mother. So even though I've been a late bloomer, all of those experiences I can now use to my advantage. And I can now see I've always had grit. And I can now see that maybe it was a good thing that I didn't start all those projects because of the point that you brought up. Because I had to focus on my health, my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health. I had to focus on those things first. And I guess, I hadn't really thought about it in this way before you asked me, but I guess maybe it did play out very well, even though it took years, because maybe I wouldn't be where I am today personally if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, I guess so, because you're so passionate about music. You're doing it in your own quirky ways. Because
I guess that's it. And that's a very key factor. I'm passionate about life in general. I'm passionate. And I think that the Asperger's coupled with my life's experiences, I see life very differently to the average person around me.
Yeah.
That is what makes my difference.
Totally.
Doing all the business webinars, there's like, what makes you stand apart? And struggling to figure out what makes me stand apart. And all this time, it was simply that. I don't have to do anything differently. I automatically stand apart.
Yeah, I am different.
My view of life. My view of life is automatically so different, and therefore automatically inspirational, motivational to the people around me. So I guess the way that that's played out is that I see so many people around me who drift and who fall away. I think the biggest thing that people do is they give in. They give in to their circumstances.
Totally.
So because I have this passion and this desire to only do things if I'm going to do them right, has saved my neck. I haven't fallen away. I haven't given in to life circumstances. And it breaks my heart when I see that. When I was struggling with PTSD, that made me change around men. If there weren't a lot of women around and mainly men, I would completely change. PTSD would take over, and then I became too vulnerable. And this is the case for a lot of young women. And a neighbour of mine ended up going to a mutual friend's party, which actually ended up in a bloody fight over her. 2 brothers were fighting over her. She was still a virgin, and I said, look, we don't need these people. And she said, well, you might not, but I do. The fact that she felt so desperate and so alone to get, then when she turned 18, she wasn't yet 18, and she drank for the first time. And so it made her vulnerable to predators, which is what happened. And I said, look, you were preyed upon. You can still be an innocent, beautiful young woman. It's different, to if you made the decision to go out and be, free with men. And she said she didn't see it that way. She was so desperate. She did not know how to see the beauty of herself. That's what made her so desperate. And so because of that desperation, she said, no, I don't care how it happened. I'm not a virgin anymore. So she gave in to the situation, and then she did sleep with men, and she became pregnant at a really young age and a single mum. And this, when people give into their circumstances, this breaks my heart, because they don't see what they're really made of. They don't see who they really are.
And on the thing that you said, that that we're talking, which looks like your life pattern, that you do it only when you're going to do it right. I just want to bring in a distinction that so many people, they can do things, they can move projects, they can take the next step, but sometimes they're just too stuck for perfection. So how do you think your model is different from that?
That is a wonderful, wonderful question. I'm so glad you asked that.
Yeah, because knowing
we all
thing is so different than waiting for like the perfect ultimate. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. This is a brilliant question. I think you can divvy it up into some different topics, so I'll just proceed them. First of all, people don't understand the meaning of perfection.
Right. Please
they think that there's that old saying, practice makes perfect.
Yep.
I disagree with that saying. I like to change it.
Okay.
Practice makes progress.
Beautiful. I love it.
Now, I have to admit, I've stolen that one from my mother.
Okay.
My mother is an amazing woman, and I tear up thinking about her. She comes from really bad family home life. She has become such amazing success, but not in the world's definition of success.
Yes.
And again, our definitions, our perceptions must change. I really believe that all the truth, the reality, everything that we need to have a wonderful, successful life, to be happy, to be able to get through the hard times and really learn from them, so that you can use those hard times to boost yourself and those around you.
Totally.
It's all there. We don't see it. Everything in this life is about perceptions, how we choose to perceive things.
Totally.
Reality does not change. Beauty, truth does not change.
It's
our
like that NLP principle, which says the map is not the territory. So even the most beautiful map of Australia can never be Australia. It is just a representation, right? Like the map of Himalayas cannot be the Himalayas.
That's right, exactly. I've not heard it said that way before, but it's so true.
Yeah.
And so that our perceptions are simply maps. But maps of what? And this is what we do well to ask ourselves. Every time we get in trouble with somebody, every time something becomes confrontational for us or uncomfortable, gives us an opportunity to look at our map.
Yeah, totally.
What is it? Yeah. Where is this map leading? What has changed? And as we know over the years, in talking about maps, that map making has become so more precise over the years. A lot of them were wrong. A lot of them, they were all wrong initially. You know what? They still are.
They still are.
Our current maps still are. Yes, the sizes of the countries and stuff, they are not correct.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing for me was, first of all, realizing that our definition of perfection is so wrong. And if we just have a look at what perfect means to imperfect beings, if you ask yourself, well, what does imperfect mean for an imperfect being? Now, not everybody that listens to this will be Christian, but I think most people have heard of the story of Job in the Old Testament. We don't even know if he was a real man or if it was just a story. A lot of people think that he may not have even been a real man, but it's a story that's been seen fit to put into the Old Testament for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me personally, the biggest thing that stands out is that in that God calls Job perfect for his day.
Yeah.
So we can take that phrase, we can take the principle of that phrase and start to now dissect, what does this mean? If we've got a higher power calling a faulty, imperfect being perfect for his day, if we just ask ourselves what that means, then we might start to get an understanding of what perfect means for us as imperfect beings. And we can be perfect in something. We can't be perfect in everything all at once.
Yep.
But we can be perfect and at something, and we can actually then begin to add those things to our list. Again, as immortal, imperfect beings, we'll never be perfect at everything all at once here in this life.
Totally.
That's what the next life is for.
Exactly.
But
Otherwise, evolution will stop, right? I mean,
and there is such a thing as evolution, just not the way Darwin made out. But there is definitely such a thing as evolution. And we are evolving. We are meant to evolve. The saddest thing in this life is that people don't know that, and they don't evolve.
Yeah.
I went to a seminar once. When I was volunteering for the council, and they had this event on in the gallery one night, and I was one of the workers there. And one of the guest speakers was a nun. She'd been a nun for decades. And she said something that has always stood out to me. The reason it stood out, not because of the truth of it, but because my mother's always said it. And I never thought I'd ever hear anybody else say something that was the same. She said, most people walking the streets are dead and they don't know it.
Right.
It is so true.
Yeah.
So going back to perfection, number one, let's challenge. I love the word challenge.
I love it too.
Let's challenge our perceptions of what perfect means for imperfect beings.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not practice makes perfect. It's practice makes progress.
I love that.
One of the reasons for that is because there are so many different avenues. If you take one subject, just one, how many different avenues can you take? So with music, for instance, there are so many different styles, genres, instruments, so many different avenues you can take. We can't even become perfect in just one of those.
Yep.
So
and what's perfect? I think, you said it so well. Like, what's the definition of perfect? I'm just going to bring that analogy again. The map is not the territory.
Yep.
So, I had a friend who used to always use the word horrible for all things good and bad. So she would say that was like, so she would be like, that was horribly expensive. Or or it would be like, she would say something like, it was so horrible, I couldn't find a car park, right? So what horrible means for her and what horrible means for me is so different than what horrible means for the dictionary.
And do you know something though on that point as well, and this is so true, but we all as human beings, whoever you are, tend to fall into the same traps.
Yep.
People don't realize that our subconscious mind rules our decisions, not our conscious mind.
Totally.
And our subconscious mind is not linear.
Yep.
It has no concept of time.
Totally.
So therefore our subconscious mind is living in the past, present and the future all in one
at the same time. That's right.
And yet this is the brain that is ruling our beliefs, ruling our decisions. Okay. So we, and it is so easy to get in touch with all of that so that our conscious mind can rule. It just seems like this big, huge deal, and it's not. But the thing is that horrible does mean the same thing. It has got, like you said, we've got that dictionary definition.
Yeah.
Now, you and your friend both know what that definition means. By her choosing to use it in the way that she's using it, she has actually trained her subconscious mind now in an unhealthy way. And that is going to have effects on her everyday life, in every aspect of her life.
Yeah.
And this is what people think, that you were got to go become a Tibetan monk or something to become enlightened. No,
not at all.
No, you don't. Truth is all around us.
Exactly.
How receptive are we to the truth? That's the question.
Yep. All right, Sarah, what I'm thinking is I just want to play a little bit of a rapid fire.
Yes.
So let's just play, right? I know both of us can just play really well spontaneously. So if you were to, like, take a moment if you need, just close your eyes and reflect if you need. And if you were to, just identify the top 3 themes of your life, in one word, like,
Okay.
what would be 3?
In one word, okay.
Three different words, maybe.
No,
What's the true essence of Sarah? Like, what's the flavor? Is it vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry, or what?
Okay, that's a good question. So I would have to say live. But the true definition of living, I'd have to say living. I've sought my whole life to understand what it means to be alive.
Yeah, I love it.
Not physically.
Yeah, in all sense.
As a soul.
As a soul, yeah.
Yeah, every aspect of our being combined together is what our soul is. Yep. It's our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all of that combined together is the soul.
Yeah.
So I think that would have to be,
totally.
If I was going to use one word.
Okay, beautiful. So, in your journey as a soul, and of course, including your experiences that you've had in the physical world, can you think of that one moment, like, because I really believe that, and we all know this as a fact, that pearls, like real pearls, are only found on the bed of the ocean, right? Like,
yep.
Right at the bottom. So what was that one point in your life when you actually hit rock bottom and then you came back with these 3 pearls?
Oh, wow. I think I grew up feeling like every day was rock bottom. Wow. Because I think probably from adolescence onwards is how I felt. Because like I said before, I actually had no understanding of who I was or life or anything through not knowing. Like, it was through a lack of knowledge. And that's why knowledge is so important. Knowledge is power. That's why God is all powerful, because he has all knowledge.
Yep.
And I didn't have the correct knowledge of who I was, what life was about, all of that sort of stuff. And it took a long time for me to find out what that was. I think because young people search in all the wrong areas first before they realize where the right place is to go.
And knowledge is not only about information. I think what you're also meaning to say is awareness, right? So I think,
yes.
Yeah, like,
I love the word awareness. It's one of my favorite words.
Yeah, see, I read
nobody can misinterpret that one. That one is not relative. Like truth can, people see truth is relative. Awareness is not relative. You're either aware or you're not.
Yeah, you can't wake up someone who's pretending to sleep. You're asleep or you're awake. Right? I mean,
pretty much. So I love that word. It can't be relative. So I think though there were, I think the worst place for me was after my divorce, and I didn't want to exist. I wish that I'd never existed at all. That way, it wouldn't be sad for my parents that I wasn't around, or something like that. And I used to hide. I wish that so much, because I believed all the wrong things about myself, that I would hide behind the couch in the corner of the room so that I couldn't be seen.
Oh.
And I would do that a lot. I guess that even though I still was struggling and there was, it just always felt like I was always at the rock bottom, to be honest. It just always did. I think that was probably the lowest point when I reached that point, because I honestly believed at that point there was no good left in me.
So then what brought you back up?
I think there were various, and it goes right back to that, like what you said before, we're all born with a fight for life. And that attitude of, if I'm going to do something, do it well. Not so much well, but do it right. You don't have to be an expert or do anything perfectly. You don't have to do anything expertly, just as long as you do it right. And, you know, going back to that topic, it's two different things. You can do something right without it being expert, or without it being perfect. In the definition that everyone sees it. I think that makes it perfect, because it's been done from your heart, your soul,
exactly.
your way.
Yeah, that's
in the right, you know,
ultimate definition of right, which feels right to you, which doesn't make you, you know, which lets you sleep peacefully, knowing that I've done the right thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so to me, that's the definition of being perfect, as an imperfect being.
Well said.
So I guess that was the lowest point. And then over the years, I think that fight in me that, well, you know, I'm alive. So therefore I best get up and try something. And I always failed. Nothing I tried ever worked. And it wasn't until many years later, back in 2013, when my mother just sort of looked at me, and she could see that nothing was improving. I just wasn't able to get on my feet. That she just challenged me. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to get, you know, on the right path, the path that you're meant to be living, instead of this chronic depression and just not, you know, being able to live. And the next day, it just sort of, I think because I let those words resonate, instead of challenging them, I just was at peace with those words, that the next morning, it just, I allowed the answer to come to me. I didn't try and think of an answer. And I think this is so important. Don't try and be the hero, you know, and so to speak, you know, where you've got to go and do this daring thing to, a lot of people feel this way, think this way. I've got to go do this big daring thing, or I've got to do this big thing. Being saved is never about the big things. It's about allowing yourself to be quiet, be in the still, stop the noise,
so you can notice.
Yes, taking notice, because the answers have been there, trying to smack him in the face for years, but you're too busy trying to be this big hero of your life in order to notice. So I just was quiet. I didn't try and consciously come up with the answer. And then I guess it was my subconscious, or my inner self, that gave me the answer the next day. And so I went away for 2013. I moved to Melbourne. I had a place to go for a few nights, and that was it. And so I took myself out of everything that I knew, because no matter what I tried, it was not going to work in an environment where I had the constant support of my family, and everything was exactly how I knew it to be. So I challenged myself, and here's the word challenge again. And I went to Melbourne, and I stayed with my mother's cousin for 4 weeks, and then I found somewhere to stay, and I allowed God to direct me. I was okay with not having the answers yet. And this is another big thing, I think, in today's world. We're always, we feel like we've got to have the answers, and we feel like we've got to get them quickly. We feel like we've got to understand everything. Why? We don't. When this is what faith is, whether you believe in God, whether you're a Christian, whether you're Hindu, whether you've got a spiritual power or not. Some people don't want to go down the spiritual side. Whether you've got that spiritual side or not, we don't have to know all the answers. We find our internal peace when we accept that. That's what we give into, not our circumstances, but we give into higher truths that are beyond ourselves. And you don't have to believe in a God in order for this to work for you. Because it's and so I gave into that. I didn't give into my situation. I went there to deal with my situation. I gave into, I don't have all the answers. I don't need to have all the answers. So I'm just going to take one day at a time and be okay with that. Not be anxious about that. Not panic about that, which is what I used to be like. So I think that was a turning point for me. Instead of being anxious about, I don't have the answers, because that is what makes us feel like we have some control in our lives when we're not in control.
What I'm thinking is, you know, when we just do what we got to do, like, you know, of course, when we've been put on this planet, we've been assigned some duties and some roles that we keep playing constantly.
Yeah.
And, when we're looking for those answers, it's like we're looking for a present. We're looking like, where's my gift? Where's my gift? Where's my gift? I mean, when we just
Yep.
become too desperate, and then it just doesn't show up, or maybe it shows up like that present, it shows up, but it doesn't feel like a surprise because, we were just so desperately looking for it because we were expecting it. But when we just keep doing our thing, and then that
Yes.
pops up and it looks like a surprise and it looks like a
Yeah.
present,
And life is an adventure. I was so funny. As a child, I hated Alice in Wonderland because children didn't see that she was actually not happy at any time. Was she having fun?
Yeah.
And to me, all I saw as a child was she got to have this amazing adventure, meeting amazing, on this other planet that was nothing like Earth.
Yep.
And that's all I saw. And I remember one day going to my mother and expressing this, and she said to me, "But Sarah, life is an adventure because you never know what's going to happen next." And I've been able to reflect on that as an adult. And she's totally correct. But it wasn't until after 2013, that I think that was the first time in my life where I was able to just give in to the unknown, be okay with the unknown.
Yeah. So what's coming to my mind is, Sarah, if you were to, just wrap this up, and if you
Yes.
were to let your, let the listeners know as to, if you could formulate a series of steps, so what would you say are, so here's Sarah and here's success, and I believe you're successful in, because you believe you're successful, you're enjoying, you're passionate about your work. So what would you say are the 3 steps that have brought you to your success?
Okay, number 1.
Yep.
Number 1 is the real definition of what loving yourself means.
Okay.
Number 1, you have got to, and for me personally, everyone's different. For me personally, I could not find this without my Savior, Jesus Christ. This is the only way that I found it, because I tried in many other ways. I came to a realization one day that my mother was a totally devoted, dedicated mother. She is an amazing, amazing woman in so many ways. But even she couldn't give me everything that I needed.
Yeah.
There are certain things that we need that we can't get from mere mortals.
Yep.
And so that's when I realized, that's why that's God's job.
Yeah.
So,
or it could be, for those.
For me, it was God, but for everyone's
it could
different.
be your superpower, whatever. Your
whatever it is for any individual. It's just that my parents, I was raised going to church.
Yeah.
But my mother never wanted us to be narrow-minded. She never wanted us to blindly follow God just because we were raised with it. And this is a big advantage to me and my growing up, because nothing was ever, my mother is dead against narrow-mindedness and being a sheep, just doing it because ruts, so and of course Christ is dead against that himself. So for me personally, I realized that mere mortals cannot give me all of my needs, that I can't give me all of my needs. There are some things that we go to other people for that we can only give ourselves. But I found that there was also some elements, that I couldn't even give myself, and I couldn't get from other people. So where did that leave me? And that is when I discovered Christ. However, so for me, it was very much then, all right, God loves me, and it was very simple. I didn't go the cross and all this sort of stuff. It was very, very simple. I believe there's a God, and I believe that he's perfect.
Is that some music playing?
Yeah, my phone is ringing.
Oh, okay.
That's all right. I'll just ignore it. So for me personally, hang on, Oscar. Oh, it stopped. For me personally, here, Oscar, the phone was ringing. I should have given it to you.
No worries.
If you do *69, I'll tell you who it was. So for me, I realized that he loves me where I'm at right now, for all my faults, and again, I saw that I was only blackness. I'd lost any insight into any goodness in me. So I think that it was when I just allowed, oh goodness.
Bless you.
Pardon me.
So what was step one again that you mentioned in the beginning?
Step one is to be at peace with who you are and where you're at right now.
Okay.
For me, I couldn't get that until I realized that Christ loves me and is perfectly happy with me, with where I am at right now, because I couldn't find any other way of giving myself permission.
Yeah, so can we say
to be okay with that?
Accept yourself, like, who
you are, faults and all, right where you're at right now. It's more, perfect. You've got to give yourself permission to be there. That it is okay. Be at peace with that.
Totally. And then I'm curious, Tara, so what's the next step then?
Well, the next step was being okay with making mistakes. I would tell myself, I've got this. I have got this. No matter what happens, whether it's due to somebody else, whether it's due to me, or whether it's just because it's life, I've got this. That's what I kept telling myself. There is always a way.
Yeah, there's always a way. Totally.
Yeah.
Wow. And then what would be step 3?
Step 3 is step 3, I think, would be, again, it all comes back to acceptance and peace. Being at peace that some things do take a long time. We're not going to get what we're after straight away.
I think
so be open to enjoy the journey. There's always something you can rejoice in. People say enjoy the journey. Your destination is not the point. The journey is the point. It's so true. But what I'd like to say is there is something to rejoice in every day.
Yep.
No matter how bad off your situation may be personally, no matter what kind of really difficult state your business might be in, at some point where you might be close to bankruptcy, you might have just been made bankrupt.
Yeah.
No matter how bad things are, there is always something that you can rejoice in that day. And more often than not, it's something that's coming from within inside of you.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm going to let this get me down. I have learned so much from this. And if there's one little thing in that day that you have been able to do better than yesterday, that is all that matters, and you rejoice in that.
Totally. And this is reminding me back of the principle that you mentioned, practice makes progress. So I think, the way you ascended your steps was so beautiful. First of all, love yourself, accept yourself. And still, on the way, if you make mistakes, be kind to yourself, right? It's okay. It's all right.
Just accept that you are going to make mistakes.
Yeah,
You've got to accept, yeah, I am.
And then
see the beauty in that. See the beauty and the success in failing, in making mistakes. It is impossible for us to learn without that.
Totally.
There are lessons we can learn from other people, but there are also many lessons we have to learn from making mistakes. It's the only way to learn. So if you are all about learning and growth and succeeding, then naturally you'd be very happy with your mistakes.
Beautiful. Yep. And I agree, and this, the 3 steps to success, I think I can see a pattern in your life stories that you've told me, it actually holds true even in the situation of your illness that you've recently diagnosed. And, I really commend you for being, so bold and strong and not giving in to the dramas that we as human beings are so capable of creating.
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard. People look at me and they think that I've always been this amazing out there strong woman. It's not the case. And if I want people to take anything away from this, is that we do evolve. We are meant to evolve. We are not meant to give in to our circumstances.
Totally.
I used to be extremely shy and withdrawn. There is that image of Sarah is long gone. I started from there. People don't believe me, but I did.
Yeah.
And this is evolution. You're witnessing evolution before your eyes now, and evolution is amazing.
Totally. Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. I think It was a wonderful first chat, like, first everything's are so special because there's no expectation, there's no comparison, there's no nothing.
Yeah.
I think it's just practice is progress, because I could have done nothing on this morning, or I just went ahead and did a great interview. So I'm so proud of myself for, taking this leap of faith and starting.
It's a wonderful idea. I just love what you're setting out to do. So I'm very excited for you and for all the people that will be able to take
so much. Yeah, and I'm absolutely proud of you as well for like putting your hand up first, not knowing what I'm getting into, right? So
isn't that what makes life exciting?
I know, I love adventures, and and then it's so much cool when I come across people like you, when we share the same energy and the conversation can just keep on going for ages. But so all good things must come to an end. And with that, just before we wrap up, is there a one line, or is there like a crisp thing that you want to leave the audience with? So what will you remember Sarah for?
Don't be scared to evolve.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Fear stops everything. We know what, we must be brave.
Yep.
That's what it is. We must be brave.
Yeah. And you are a living example of bravery, I think, with all that you're experiencing in your life, with your health and all that you have come out of, your marriage, your violence, your illness, and still going strong. So well done, Sarah.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to stop the recording.